Life was a blur, a constant state of motion. Sarah, a loving mother of two beautiful children, felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Work deadlines loomed, the house seemed to constantly need cleaning, and the mental load of parenting felt ever present. The demands were endless. Each day felt like a race against the clock, a race she couldn't possibly win. Where was the joy? Where was the peace? She yearned for a moment to just breathe. The guilt gnawed at her. She loved her children more than anything, yet she felt so disconnected. The constant busyness created a barrier built of to-do lists and errands. Sarah knew in her heart that something had to change. This wasn't the life she envisioned for herself or her family. She wanted to be present, to savor the moments, to feel the joy that seemed to elude her. Every day felt the same. The alarm clock jolted her awake, a harsh reminder of the long day ahead. Breakfast was a flurry of activity. The drive to school was a blur. Work was demanding, her inbox overflowing. Lunch was hurried, eaten at her desk. The afternoon brought more pressure. Picking up the kids was the only bright spot. But the to-do list loomed large. Dinner, bath time, bedtime routines, another race. Exhausted, Sarah would collapse into bed, dreading the next day. Sarah clung to the belief that happiness was out there, somewhere in the future. When the kids were older, when work calmed down, when life became more manageable, she dreamed of a time when she could finally relax, when she could finally enjoy the fruits of her labor. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered that something was missing. That happiness wasn't a destination, but a way of traveling. One particularly hectic afternoon, as Sarah rushed to pick up her children from school, she noticed something unexpected. A tiny flower, its petals a vibrant shade of purple, had pushed its way through a crack in the sidewalk. Despite the harsh conditions, the flower bloomed with resilience, its beauty a stark contrast to the concrete jungle surrounding it. Sarah stopped in her tracks, mesmerized. In that moment, the weight of her worries seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of awe and wonder. Sarah believed in order, a place for everything and everything in its place. Her days were meticulously planned, each hour accounted for. She thrived on the illusion of control, the belief that if she could just check off every item on her to-do list, happiness would follow. But the list was never ending. As soon as she crossed one task off, two more seemed to magically appear in its place. The pursuit of order had become a prison of its own making. Spontaneity was replaced with schedules. Joyful moments were squeezed between appointments. Sarah longed for freedom, for the ability to simply be present in the moment without her mind racing ahead to the next task. But the fear of letting go, of embracing the chaos, kept her tethered to her carefully constructed schedule. The walls of her home, once filled with the echoes of laughter and the warmth of connection, now seemed to be closing in, each surface a silent reminder of tasks yet to be done. The laundry piled high, a mountain of unfolded clothes that threatened to topple over at any moment. The dishes stacked precariously in the sink, a testament to the hurried meals eaten on the go. Even the children's artwork, once proudly displayed on the refrigerator, seemed lost amidst the clutter of permission slips, grocery lists and appointment reminders. Sarah longed to create a haven, a space where her family could relax and reconnect. But the weight of her responsibilities felt suffocating, leaving her with little energy to do anything but maintain the bare minimum. The joy had seeped out of their home, replaced by a pervasive sense of obligation and exhaustion. Evenings, once a time for family dinners and bedtime stories, had become a frantic rush to get everything done. Sarah would try to engage her children, to ask about their day, but her mind would inevitably wander back to her to-do list. The guilt would gnaw at her, a constant reminder that she was failing to cherish these precious moments with her children. Their laughter seemed to echo in the distance, a bittersweet reminder of the joy she was missing. She yearned to bridge the gap, to reconnect with the people who mattered most, but the chasm of her own making felt insurmountable. Sarah craved connection, not just with her children, but with herself. She had become so consumed by the role of wife and mother that she had lost sight of her own needs and desires. The woman she once was, the woman who loved to read, to write, to simply be, seemed like a distant memory. She knew deep down that something had to change. This wasn't the life she wanted for herself or her family, but the fear of the unknown, of disrupting the carefully constructed life she had built, kept her paralyzed. She was trapped in a cage of her own making, the bars forged from her own expectations and insecurities. The school day ended like any other. Children poured out of the building, a cacophony of excited chatter and hurried goodbyes. Sarah stood among the waiting parents, her mind already racing through the evening schedule. Dinner needed to be prepped, homework supervised, baths drawn. The mental to-do list spun like a carousel, each item demanding her attention. As she waited for her own children to emerge, her gaze fell upon a small crack in the pavement. It was an unremarkable flaw in the concrete, easily overlooked in the hustle and bustle of the afternoon. Yet something about it drew her eye. Perhaps it was the way the sunlight glinted off the uneven surface, or the way the crack seemed to bisect the world into two distinct halves. For a fleeting moment, the world seemed to slow down. The cacophony of sound faded into background noise, the hurried movements of the crowd blurring at the edges. Sarah's gaze remained fixed on the crack, her mind quieting for the first time all day. It was then that she noticed it, a tiny splash of colour emerging from the heart of the crack. A single wildflower, its delicate purple petals unfurling towards the sun, had taken root in the most unlikely of places. Despite the harshness of its surroundings, the flower bloomed with an unyielding tenacity, a testament to the enduring power of life. A wave of awe washed over Sarah. In that moment, the weight of her worries, the endless to-do lists, the constant pressure to do and be more seemed to melt away. All that remained was the simple beauty of the flower, a symbol of resilience and hope in the face of adversity. She had walked this path countless times before, her mind too cluttered with obligations to truly see the world around her. Yet here was this tiny flower, a beacon of beauty in the mundane, reminding her that even in the cracks of life, joy could blossom. A deep breath escaped Sarah's lips, the first conscious inhalation she had taken all day. The air, normally filled with the city's exhaust and the weight of her own expectations, suddenly felt lighter, sweeter. It was as if the flower, in its silent resilience, had given her permission to breathe, to simply exist in the moment without judgment or expectation. The carousel of thoughts in her mind slowed to a gentle hum, replaced by a sense of quiet wonder. In that moment, Sarah realized that happiness wasn't a destination to be reached, but a state of being to be cultivated. And sometimes, all it took was a tiny flower pushing through the cracks in the pavement to remind her of that truth. The encounter with the flower, small and seemingly insignificant, had awakened something within Sarah. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing the world in a new light. As she went about her day, she found herself noticing things she had previously overlooked. The way the sunlight dappled through the leaves of the trees, casting intricate patterns on the sidewalk, the sound of children's laughter echoing from a nearby park, the simple pleasure of a warm cup of tea held in her hands. The world, once a blur of obligations and errands, was now filled with small moments of beauty waiting to be discovered. Sarah began to understand that happiness wasn't about grand gestures or achieving some elusive state of perfection. It was about opening her eyes to the present moment, to the richness and wonder that already existed in her life. The cacophony of daily life, once a source of stress and overwhelm, began to transform into a symphony of ordinary moments, each note carrying its own unique beauty. The sound of her children's voices, once lost in the background noise of her busy mind, now resonated with a sweetness that brought tears to her eyes. The feel of her husband's hand in hers, a simple gesture of love and connection, sent shivers of gratitude through her body. Even the mundane tasks of daily life, washing dishes, folding laundry, preparing meals, took on a new significance. As she worked, her hands moved with a mindful grace, her attention focused on the present moment rather than the endless to-do list scrolling through her mind. There was a rhythm to these ordinary tasks, a soothing cadence that calmed her anxious mind and allowed her to find a sense of peace in the everyday. The pursuit of happiness, once a relentless chase for something elusive and out of reach, became a gentle unfolding, a discovery of joy in the most unexpected of places. Sarah found pleasure in the simple act of brewing her morning coffee, inhaling the rich aroma and savouring the first sip. She took delight in watching her children play, their laughter a symphony of pure joy that filled her heart with gratitude. She began to notice the changing seasons, the way the light shifted and the colours of nature transformed with each passing month. The world, once a backdrop to her busy life, became a source of endless fascination and wonder. She was present, she was awake, and she was finally starting to truly live. The shift in Sarah's perspective wasn't about denying the challenges of life or pretending that everything was perfect. It was about choosing to focus on the good, the beautiful, the moments of grace that existed even amidst the chaos. It was about recognizing that happiness wasn't a destination but a journey, a conscious choice to find joy in the everyday. As Sarah embraced this new way of seeing the world, she noticed a profound change within herself. The constant tension that had gripped her shoulders began to ease. The worry lines that had etched themselves onto her face seemed to soften. She was calmer, more patient, more present in her own life. And most importantly, she was happy. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had finally learned to find joy in the imperfect perfection of her own life. Time, once a relentless taskmaster, became a cherished companion. Sarah began to loosen her grip on her rigid schedule, creating space for spontaneity and joy. She delegated tasks, asked for help, and learned to say no without guilt. The world didn't fall apart when she let go of the need for absolute control. In fact, it breathed a sigh of relief right alongside her. The to-do list still existed, as it always would, but it no longer held her hostage. It became a guide, not a dictator. There was room for impromptu picnics in the park, for reading stories aloud with exaggerated voices, for baking cookies with flour-covered fingers and unrestrained laughter. These were the moments that mattered, the moments that painted her life in vibrant hues. Sarah's presence, once fragmented and scattered, began to coalesce. She was fully present in each moment, her attention no longer divided between the demands of the past and the worries of the future. Her children noticed the change in her. Their eyes, once filled with a longing for her divided attention, now sparkled with the joy of true connection. She listened with her whole heart, her mind no longer a whirlwind of to-dos. She engaged in their games with childlike enthusiasm, rediscovering the magic in the mundane. Bedtime stories were no longer a rushed ritual, but a cherished time for connection, her voice soothing away the day's anxieties. In giving the gift of her presence, Sarah received a gift far greater in return, the gift of true connection and unconditional love. The transformation Sarah underwent was not confined to the walls of her home. It rippled outward, touching the lives of those around her. She found herself smiling more often, offering kindness to strangers, and extending grace to those who crossed her path. Her energy, once frenetic and depleted, became a source of warmth and inspiration. Her relationships deepened, built on a foundation of authenticity and vulnerability. She no longer felt the need to present a perfect facade, embracing the messy, imperfect beauty of her true self. As she allowed herself to be seen, truly seen, she gave others permission to do the same. Vulnerability became a strength, connection became a lifeline, and love flowed freely in her life. Life, once a carefully orchestrated performance, became an unscripted adventure. Sarah embraced the unknown, the unexpected detours that led to hidden treasures. She learned to dance in the rain, to find joy in the journey, and to trust that even when life threw her a curveball, she had the strength and resilience to navigate the unknown. The pursuit of happiness had transformed into a celebration of life itself, in all its messy, imperfect glory. Sarah had discovered that true joy wasn't about achieving some elusive state of perfection, but about embracing the present moment with open arms and a grateful heart. And in doing so, she had found her way back to herself, to the woman she was always meant to be, free, joyful, and fully alive. Sarah's journey is a reflection of our own. We often search for happiness in grand achievements, overlooking the quiet beauty around us. Life whispers a different truth. Happiness is not a place we arrive at, but a way we travel. It's in the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter, the simple pleasure of a shared meal, the unexpected beauty of a wildflower pushing through pavement. These moments create the tapestry of our lives. So let us take a collective breath, slow down our racing minds, and open our hearts to the extraordinary in the ordinary. Let us savor the sweetness of our morning coffee, delight in the sound of birdsong, and find joy in the simple act of breathing. Let us embrace imperfection, release the need for control, and allow ourselves to be present in each and every moment. For in those moments, we discover the true essence of happiness. It's not about chasing after some elusive dream, but about awakening to the beauty that already exists within us and all around us. It's about finding joy in the journey, embracing the ups and downs, and celebrating the gift of life itself. What small moments bring you joy? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's inspire each other to find happiness in the little things. And don't forget to subscribe for more uplifting content.